What's up, guys? Let's take a look at another CodeWars exercise. This one's called split strings, and it gives us a string of characters asking us to break it into chunks of 2. So the first and second, the third and fourth, the fifth and sixth, and so on. This might seem arbitrary, but it's the kind of thing that happens all the time with real data. You get some input and it's not exactly the format you need. Maybe everything's in one blob instead of separate cells. Maybe everything's uppercase and you need it lower. You got to do a little bit of transformation and cleaning before you can use it. And there are always little details that come up, like if we're doing chunks of 2, what if it's an odd number and we don't have a last chunk? They ask us to throw in an underscore. And let's do that part first because it'll make the other parts easier. So I'm going to take my code here and I'm going to do a bit of padding. This is called padding. If you have some data and it doesn't quite fit into the box, well, you add a thing to make it fit. This might be bits to make a full byte. This might be letters to make a full string, whatever you need. And I'm going to call this padded. We're going to have a padded version. We're going to use that in the second half of this problem. So we could just say s plus underscore if the length of s is odd. And the way we determine odd is we go modulo 2, divide by 2, and see if there's a remainder. Okay? If there's a remainder, it must be odd, so that's good. Else, it's just s. So if s was already even, then our padded version is just the original s. But now we can say the padded version and we're fine. We're safe. We don't have to worry about odd numbers anymore. It's good. It fits into our box. And our box, you know, this 2-character thing, I imagine it might be state abbreviations if you have IN and KY and those kind of things. What if we got a bunch that were all thrown together and we need to separate them? This happens. So what we're going to do is just make a range. If you remember, ever since the very beginning of quarter 1, we were going through a range. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4, or it might be in bigger jumps. And in this case, the jump is going to be 2. We're going to start at 0, go to the length, and jump up by 2. So it's going to look something like range of 0 to the len of s by 2. Okay? And it doesn't really matter. We could use the length of padded here. At the top of the range, we're not going to hit it anyway, so I think it's fine. But if there's an error, that'll be what we change. And what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to get a slice. We're going to get a small part of the string, and the way you do that is you say, well, just like a range, you say where do we start, where do we end, and maybe how much do we step. So we're going to go to I. Usually I is the name we choose for these. It's not meaningful, it's just an index. So I'm going to say we're going to go to I plus 2, which is a chunk of 2. And so we're going to do that for I in range, this thing, which is 0 up to the end every 2. And then that's it. We just have to take those and put them in some kind of structure. In this case, they just want a list. So all we have to do is wrap that in brackets. If I say return that, I think that's it, but I haven't been testing it as I go, so maybe I made some mistakes. Let's see what happens. Hey, I got some of the tests, not others. And you know what I did? I forgot the padded version. I was using the original S. So right here I should say this is the padded I plus 2. Because if you'll notice, I passed half of them. Those are probably the even number lengths. And I failed the ones that needed an underscore on the end, because I did this line and then I forgot to use it. So right here we're going to go the padded slice of 2 for the range. Now if I test that, hey, we got it. Now this is a problem that I bet there are a ton of different ways to solve it. There's the one I showed, but it's definitely not the only. Let's see what other people have done for their solutions. I'm going to see a classic for loop where we start with an empty list and append one at a time. That's fine. And it's really the same thing we were doing. You can see they made a slice of I plus 2, and they went with the range 0 to the end every other. So even though this looks different, this is doing exactly the same thing I did, just arranged in an old-fashioned way. This one, they imported RE, which is regular expressions. That's a way to search through text and replace things or whatever. And this is getting chunks of 2, adding a space. Great. I'm not very familiar with regular expressions, but I always wish I was, because sometimes, just like here, they can do great work. This one, exactly the same thing we did. It's going in chunks of 2, but they have to add the underscore, and they're just cramming it all into one long line, which, in my opinion, is pretty hard to read, but it does the same job. This one, a little more condensed, pretty nice. I think they're just doing the padding all at once. It might be that you can just reach however many times you need, and if there was an extra underscore at the end, you're not going to grab it. So that might be a clever way to avoid if statements, you know. This one, another regular expression, but they use a different syntax. I don't know all the little tricks and all the things you can do, but it would be cool to learn. This one, same thing. I bet if we scroll down long enough, we would find one that really surprised us, but we see it's pretty much the same stuff, just arranged in different ways, and maybe you like one long line, or maybe you like a bunch of medium ones. That's no problem. The important thing is the thought process. What do we need? How do we go there? And how do we deal with the little snags along the way? Thanks.